In Parkville, we see all ages of homes. We see stone foundations, we see poured concrete walls to today's home, and we see everything in between. We see slab homes, we see crawl spaces, we see block and mortar. There is a lot of settling in Parkville, so if you have cracks in your walls, if your doors are sticking, your windows are sticking, that's a good sign that there's probably some settling going on. We can resolve that with underpinning or piering, regardless of the type of foundation. It's just a matter of whether we can recover those losses or not. With stone foundations, we can't recover, we can only stabilize. The mortar and the stones will just begin to kind of crush if we try to put too much pressure on the underpinning. But we can stop the settlement where it stands with the stone foundation. With block and mortar and slabs and crawl spaces and even today's poured concrete walls, we can recover a lot of the loss and settlement, and that's the type of stuff we're seeing right now with the dryness. Now come springtime, when it begins to rain and these cracks now begin to get wet, we have plenty of techniques from crack injections to sump pump drain systems, interior drain systems, exterior drain systems, exterior waterproofing, interior waterproofing, crack membranes, crawl space encapsulation, you name it, we got it, for whether it's structural or waterproofing when it comes to any solution that's needed in Parkville with KC Pier. Specifically nowadays, we're dealing with concrete piering. And so we do and spend a lot of our time showing up to the house, taking measurements and finding the high point of the home, finding the low points of the home and seeing how much has changed, especially recently with that drought. That settling has really come into play. And so anything that is settled more than 3/4 of an inch, homeowners are going to tend to find, cracks in the drywall or windows that are sticking, doors that are not opening or closing properly. And that's most likely when it comes to settling. And so we show up, we measure the house, we find the high points and the low points of the home, and then we will actually graphically draw up the house and come up with a piering scope of work or a piering repair. Some of the houses we will actually lift and resolve. In some cases with stone foundations, we can only structurally stop the settling. We can't lift the house itself because there's too many break points between the stone and the mortar. But ultimately we can say stop in terms of the settling by under-piering a house, taking those piers, driving them down to bedrock, and ultimately telling that house that it can't settle anymore. Or in the case of a block foundation or a poured foundation, we can lift and try to recover those structures, and we'll see those cracks in the walls begin to close up. We'll see the doors begin to close and open properly as they should. With piering, houses can independently be treated. In terms of sides of homes can be independently treated with a piering resolution. Sometimes we see with homes that only one side of the house happens to be falling and is pulling on the rest of the house. In some places, we'll actually see the house falling in multiple locations in multiple directions, and so it is a complete repair. But depending on the repair, depending on the variables, we can offer a solution that will definitely affect and resolve one side of the house, and particularly just monitor another side of the house at another time, potentially come back to take a look to see if there's been any changes. The great thing about KC Pier is that every file, it lives with us on file by address. And so we will keep all the elevations, ultimately check them at the time that we're there for our service or consultation. And then if anything changes in the future, we can always go back to that same file, come back to the home at a later date, check our measurements and compare to see if there's been any activity.